Hello everyone and welcome to my July TBR. This was an amazing reading month for me. I think my average rating was about 4.4, so get ready for that. I read a ton of graphic novels as well. That's probably most of the reason why it was so high. So what I'm gonna do is split this video up. The first half will be the regular books that I read, going from least favorite to most favorite, and then the second half will be all of my graphic novels. So that way you can navigate to whichever part you want to see the most. So let's go. So the first book I sadly DNF'd. It is City of Shattered Light. I know. I am so sad. This is a sapphic sci-fi. I thought it was going to be perfect for me. I read 54% of the book, so more than halfway. I tried so hard, guys. I tried so hard. It's not like there was anything wrong with the book. I just did not care at all about what was happening. Maybe I just wasn't in the right mood for the book like I thought I was. I really don't know. I just felt like I wasn't immersed in the story and I had a hard time following what was happening because I didn't care enough. And both of the main girls kind of blended together for me, their POVs, which was an issue. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this one, and quite honestly, I don't feel like ever trying to pick it up again. So very sad. Okay, and now we have 2 3 stars. So we're going from DNFs to books that I actually liked. First, we have The Sound of the Stars by Alicia Dow, which is also very sad because I really wanted to like this, but honestly, I kind of expected it to be around a 3 or a 4, so it ended up being a 3. I really like the concept. The concept is that these aliens came and invaded Earth, and basically they are banning all emotional media, like no one can have books, no one can have music, things like that. But the main character has this secret library that she runs, which was really fun. I liked that. It was kind of like a speakeasy library. And then the love interest is an alien who really likes music, like Earth music. So I really enjoyed that part, but I liked the fact that the main character, the girl, was asexual. That was great, and that was handled really, really well because she is in a romantic relationship with the love interest, so that was really good representation for that. But unfortunately, that relationship did not work for me at all. I just felt like they had really no chemistry, and they didn't work well together, and it felt very forced. The beginning of the book was really good and really worked for me, but the ending just felt really flat. So unfortunately, only 3 stars. Okay, the next book, I feel like people are going to be upset about me, but it is The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. I'm really sorry. I only gave this 3 stars. I really like this. I liked it better than The Sound of the Stars, actually, which is kind of weird because it's contemporary and Sound of Stars is sci-fi, so that's usually more my jam. I really liked the concept of this. I loved the main character. The whole thing about her having been outed by her best friend in her other school, and then she has to move to a different school, which is the Catholic school in the title, and she is going to pretend not to be gay. That is very interesting to me, but a lot of it felt very contrived, because immediately, like her first day at this Catholic school, she meets another lesbian, and it's very obvious, and she's just like, oh, I'm not gonna tell her, like, I'm still gonna be straight. And it's like, okay, but she would obviously be very accepting, and I don't really understand. There's just a lot of very contrived things that happen in this book that really rubbed me the wrong way. I don't want to give it away because it's kind of a spoiler towards the end, but safe to say I did not like the ending. There's a lot of like weirdness that happens that's just like not necessary. A lot of lying, and I know it's a YA book, so a lot of that is like teen drama, but I just really don't see the point of it. I don't. So unfortunately, now that I'm talking about it, I didn't lie. It's a 3 because I'm getting angry again. So I really loved the concept of this. I just wish it didn't have all that unnecessary lying and weird contrived storylines. It was annoying. The next book, I'm still on the fence whether it's a 3 or a 3.5. I am very disappointed about this. It is August Kitco and the Mechas from Space by Alex White. I was so looking forward to this sci-fi. It has a very light-hearted tone, but it's about the end of the world and these mechas from space, as the title suggests, coming and basically attacking Earth. I think most of my problems with it were very personal and subjective, so it's not like this is a bad book at all. I mean, obviously this is all my subjective opinion, this whole video is, but this one specifically, I have realized that I don't like sci-fi that focuses heavily on music and musicians, and this definitely did. August Kitco is a musician and their love interest, who is non-binary, really interesting character, is like a famous pop star, and they are both basically chosen as like these conduits for these mechas. The problem with it were the characters for me. August Kitco was supposed to be like the charming everyman, and like he was supposed to be a little quirky, a little awkward, and just like, oh, like the bumbling guy like during the end of the world. And he was very obviously supposed to be quite likable, and he just was not likable for me. I really did not enjoy reading about him. And also the main thing that really annoyed me was the whole relationship between him and his love interest, the non-binary pop star whose name I can't remember. They had absolutely nothing in common except music. And it seemed every other page was them being like, oh, like, you know, if it wasn't the end of the world, we'd be having sex right now. And it's like, okay, like, I get it. Just tell me the story of the book. I don't care about you people. It just felt very annoying and forced. It felt very forced. And there were things that really rubbed me the wrong way, about their relationship, but I won't go into those details. Yeah, unfortunately, this just didn't work for me, but I really wish it did. Okay, now for the 4 stars. First, we have This Wicked Fate, which is the sequel to This Poison Heart, which was my favorite book that I read in June. This Wicked Fate was very good, but I think a lot of what I enjoyed about This Poison Heart was the beginning of it, and like the main character kind of discovering herself and her powers and like flower magic and things like that. But in this, it didn't have quite that same tone of self-exploration in it and like growing up, which was fine. I mean, this was a great sequel, great ending to the story because it's a duology, and I still really enjoyed it. It just had, there was one thing I didn't love. There was this, I don't want to give spoilers, but some things basically felt like they were resolved too fast and too neatly at the end. That's all I'm gonna say. So this is a 4-star for me, but I absolutely really enjoyed it, and you should all read This Poison Heart because it's so good. Next, we have Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield, which is a literary horror novel. I think it was really good. It was very, very short. It's about this woman named Mary, whose wife was like an undersea explorer, marine biologist person, and she goes on this expedition under a submarine, and instead of only being gone like 3 weeks, I think she was gone for 6 months. So when she comes back, she's having all these issues, like she wants to be in the bath all the time, and she'll only drink water with like tablespoons of salt in it and all this stuff, and like something is obviously very wrong. I did really enjoy it. Obviously I liked it because it was sapphic, but I think the mystery was done really well. I just personally don't love literary fiction, but I can absolutely understand why other people would go love this book to death. I totally understand. The literariness of it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but there's nothing wrong with the book itself. I'm sure a lot of other people love it. It just, I really liked the mystery and horror aspect of it. I really liked the ending, but yeah, it just wasn't my absolute favorite, so not a 5-star unfortunately, but still really, really good and worth the read. Next is a nonfiction, Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. This is a very, very famous nonfiction work about the Osage murders and the creation of the FBI. I really enjoy reading and listening about true crime, so I really thought I was going to love this book, and I have seen it described as narrative nonfiction, like kind of nonfiction that reads as fiction, and at times it did, but I think it could have benefited from more editing. There were a lot of people in it that we didn't need to know all this information about. Like, he did a very thorough job, the author, but he gave too much background information about these side people that just wasn't, I felt, relevant to the story of the Osage murders and the solving of the murders. So I think it could have been shorter. And I also feel like it was a little dry. It was dry. Like, it didn't feel like narrative nonfiction to me. It felt like I was reading a newspaper article, except it was the length of a book. So that's why it's 4 stars instead of a 5, because I usually rate nonfiction 5 stars, but it was quite dry. And there was a little bit too much detailed information about things that weren't extremely pertinent to the story. But it was extremely interesting and definitely something that I feel like I should have learned about a long time ago, but I really did not know anything about. So it's absolutely worth the read. Very, very interesting history, very sad and tragic history, but absolutely worth the read. Okay, and now the 4.5 star is Vita Nostra, which was our Found in Translation pick for July. I really, really enjoyed this. I will agree with people who say that it's very hard to explain, because I am thinking, and it's very hard to explain. The beginning, it's about this girl who is on vacation to a beach town with her mother, and she meets this strange man on the beach who basically gives her all these strange tasks to do, and in return for these tasks she gets these gold coins, and once she gets enough of these gold coins, she's then sent to this mysterious technological institute, which is not really that at all. It's like this magic school. The school itself is so weird, and I really loved it. I think it was just weird enough. It like hit that perfect sweet spot where you don't really know what's going on, but then it, like, towards the end you're like, oh, okay, like, I kind of like, this is cool, this is interesting. Very weird, extremely original. I loved it. I really enjoyed it a lot. Again, I think it could have benefited from some editing because it was a little repetitive at some points, but I think it was phenomenal. And like, if you're into that magic school vibe and dark academia and also like dark fantasy, definitely pick this up. It was really, really good. One of my favorites we've read for the Found in Translation book club so far. Okay, so now the 5 stars. First, Nura and the Immortal Palace by M.T. Khan. This is a middle grade novel. First, just bask in the glory of this cover. It's just one of the most beautifully designed covers I have seen in a very long time. This gives major Spirited Away vibes. It's about a girl who basically does child labor, and she works in mica mines, and during a collapse of these mines, she is transported to the world of the jinn, basically, and she has to find her way out. And it is just so magical, has really amazing commentary on child labor and things like that. It's so good. I really, really highly recommend it. It's quite short, and I just love Nura as a main character. She's so headstrong but still makes mistakes that are understandable, and I loved it. It was just a really great read. And if you're into Ghibli, this is absolutely a book for you. The next one is another nonfiction. It's The Hidden Life of Trees, which is actually a translated nonfiction from German about exactly what it sounds like. Basically about how trees communicate with each other and how they grow and cooperate with each other in the natural world. And basically it teaches you a lot about trees that is not visible from the naked eye, really. Like, trees have friends, and how trees work when they die and things like that, and basically how they contribute to the overall system of nature, and it was really good, very educational, very informative. So yeah, very enjoyable. If you're into nature nonfiction, you can't miss this one. And then we have an arc from NetGalley, which is the Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, the second book in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy. I loved this so much. I actually liked this better than the first book, The Jasmine Throne, which is kind of opposite of how things usually are, but I loved this so much. Oh my god, I loved it. It was long, over 500 pages, but I flew through this book like way longer than I usually do for a book that size, especially because it was an ebook, and those are generally quite difficult for me to get through. It was so good. Malini and Priya's relationship felt so gorgeously explored in this book, and it was just so heart-wrenching to read, heart-wrenching and beautiful all at the same time. The way that Tasha Suri melds together politics and religion and world building and this amazing planned magic. I loved every minute of this book. Please read it. You will not be disappointed. I cannot wait for the third book in the trilogy. I just cannot wait. Now we have one of my most anticipated reads. It is She Gets the Girl, co-written by a wife and wife team, Rachel Lippincott and Allison Derrick. And I loved this book from start to finish. I did not expect to, but it was so wonderfully complex and had way deeper and more complex characters than I expected it to for being a YA contemporary. I loved it. I really underestimated it, and it did not deserve that. This is about one girl, I forget their names because I read this at the beginning of the month, I'm sorry. One girl who has broken up with her on and off again girlfriend, and basically she's having commitment issues. And she says, okay, so in order to show my ex that I am capable of being a good person and helping other people for no gain for myself, I will help this woefully awkward college freshman, who is the love interest in the story, get a date with her crush, which is another random girl who is very sweet, and I love her. So obviously these two fall in love, and it's very, very good. There's a lot of complexity in both of these characters, and they really felt like two very different but very real people. Their POVs felt very distinct from one another, which is so incredibly important when you're reading a dual POV book, especially a romance book. I just loved every second of this. There's a very cute roller skating date in it, and very real and understandable feelings. And I feel like a lot of the reason why I don't love romance so much is that a lot of the conflicts feel very contrived and just thrown in there for conflict in the plot that don't really make sense, but this one really made a lot of sense, and it felt very plausible for real life, and I enjoyed every second of this. Loved it. The next book was a surprise for me. It is Valiant Ladies by Melissa Gray, and this was sent to me by the publisher Epic Reads, so thank you very much, unsolicited. So I'm so excited to get to read this wonderful sapphic historical fiction book. It is about two girls in colonial Peru who basically at night turn into like these sword-wielding vigilantes, and it was just so exciting. I absolutely loved their little romance in there, and it's also a mystery book, so I guess it's a historical mystery. If you're a fan of June Her's books, the historical mystery Korean books, you would definitely be a fan of this. Because the mystery was so compelling. There's basically a serial killer on the loose, and there's also a lot of politics involved, and it's just so wonderfully complex, especially for a YA book, but it still does a very good job with being relatable for teenagers. I think, I'm not a teenager, I don't know, but it's so good. I loved them. I just love these characters. One of them is the daughter of a very high-ranking colonial official, and another one was like on the streets. Basically, she was very poor, and she ended up being taken in by the family, and I loved them. I loved that complexity between them. I just loved everything about this book, and I didn't even have it on my radar before it was sent to me, so I can't believe I missed this, and I have not seen anybody else recommend it on Booktube yet, so absolutely check this out. You do not want to miss this amazing book. Okay, so the last two books are by Becky Chambers. The first is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I loved. It is a very cozy sci-fi, found family vibes about this girl named Rosemary who joins the crew of the Wayfarer, which is a ship that creates wormholes through space. That's their job. And they basically, you know, find a family along the way. I don't know what else to explain it as. I love every single member of the crew. Becky Chambers does an amazing job with all of the characters in there, making them very distinct with each other, because having a big cast of characters like this, like an ensemble cast, sometimes it can be quite hard to make it feel both natural and also that they're all distinct and all have a purpose for being there. And all of these characters really felt like they had a purpose for being in the story. It was just wonderful, and I'm really hoping to read the sequel in August. And my favorite novel or real book that I read this month was Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, which is the sequel to A Psalm for the Wild Built. And this monk and robot book was arguably even better than the first one. I just love this so much. This is really my bread and butter. This is a solar punk sci-fi book about a tea monk who goes around with their ox cart bike and goes around to all these different towns and sells their tea, and they are very dissatisfied with their life, and they meet this robot named Moscap and they become best friends, and I just love it so much. In this book, Moscap is basically going around to human society and kind of introducing itself and learning about humans, and I love it. This book felt like a warm cup of tea. It also felt like a therapy session, and it was so heartwarming and dealt so beautifully with the human condition, and I fell even more in love with the main character in this book. I love it. I am pretty sure that this monk and robot novella is only a duology, sadly, but I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that Becky Chambers writes more of these, because I will read anything that has to do with this. I love this so much. This will absolutely be one of my favorite novellas forever. I love this so much. Okay, so now for graphic novels. 2 of them were 3 stars and all the rest were 5 stars. So first, the 3 stars. First we have Mooncakes, which was by Wendy Zhu. And this was a really cute, magical, and witchy graphic novel, and it definitely has a lot of great queer rep. One of the love interest was non-binary, and I just loved the magical feeling of this. However, I just felt like the story itself was either really rushed and just kind of disjointed. So I really didn't feel that attached to any of the characters or anything that was happening, because like one minute something cute was happening and the next it was like, whoa, like there's this monster that's coming, and there was no build up to it or anything like that. So I mean, it's really cute and great if you want a witchy book with queer rep, but it wasn't my favorite, but I'm still glad I read it. And then the other 3-star was Princess Ever After, which was Kay O'Neill's first published graphic novel, I believe. It was just too short to have enough time to let the story itself breathe, because it's a really cute idea. There's this Rapunzel-esque princess who is stuck in a tower by her evil sister, and this knight who is actually also a princess comes to rescue her, and they fall in love and all of that, and that was great. The beginning was really cute, but there just wasn't enough time to let the story develop and let the relationships between those two develop. It felt very rushed. Yeah, so I wish it was longer. If it was just a tiny bit longer, just like not a couple extra pages, maybe like, I don't know. I don't know anything about making graphic novels, but it just needed to be longer. But it was still really cute, and of course, great queer rep. Okay, now all the rest are 5 stars, and speaking of Kay O'Neill, we have the Tea Dragon Society. I read all 3 of them, so the Tea Dragon Society, the Tea Dragon Festival, and the Tea Dragon Tapestry. All 3 were 5 stars. Absolutely one of the best graphic novels and best books that I've read this year. It is just so cute. Basically, the whole premise is based on the fact that there are these tiny little creatures who are so cute. They're like little furry pet dragons who grow tea leaves and like flowers on the tops of their heads. It's just so cute, and like their tea leaves are picked and they make tea, and the tea can kind of transport you back into your memories. The art is impeccable. I love Kay O'Neill's art style, and it was just so warm. And like it felt like reading this was like a big hug. It was just so good. I loved every minute reading these books, so I highly recommend all three of these, and they're super quick reads. Like you can read all three of them in a day. I just highly recommend this. I loved them so much. It was so magical and great queer rep as well. Okay, and then Kay O'Neill's other book was Aquacorn Cove, which again, great queer rep. This is about a girl who gets sent to live with her aunt, I believe, by the seaside, or she's just like on vacation there or something. I can't remember the specifics, but she goes there, and the story is that her mom died in a boating accident, and there's just a lot of complex feelings involved in this, and I think it deals with grief very well as other familial issues. But she basically rescues this aquacorn, which is kind of a mix of a seahorse and a unicorn creature, and in return for doing this, there's undersea kingdom who helps the town out, and it's just so cute. It has great commentary on environmentalism and things like that. And again, I love Kay O'Neill's art style, so that was adorable. This reminded me a lot of When Marnie Was There, the Ghibli film. If you like that, you might be a fan of this. It's kind of a combination of that and the Japanese folktale Urashima Taro. So if you're into any of that, definitely check this out. But this was so cute and I loved it. So the next graphic novel is actually a graphic memoir. It is Messy Roots by Laura Gao, and I loved this so much. It deals with the fact that Laura Gao was from Wuhan in China, and they moved to America with their family. I believe they moved to Texas, but don't quote me on that. And they grow up during the COVID pandemic, and it basically deals with them saying, well, the Wuhan I remember is not like the fear-mongered Wuhan that's in American news. So it was very interesting to see that from a perspective of someone who actually lived and grew up in Wuhan. And then it deals with the immigrant experience as well in America, Asian hate in America, the fact that they go back to Wuhan to visit their family and they feel very out of place because they lived in America for so long. And it also deals with them growing into and figuring out their queer identity. They are non-binary and they date a woman, and I love it. I loved this so much. I picked this up on a whim at my job at the library, and I'm so glad I did. It was such a wonderful read, very poignant for the times, and I just recommend this to everyone. Okay, and the next, I think, is one of my absolute favorite graphic novels I've read. It is The Seance Tea Party by Rimena Yi, and it was so adorable. It is this middle grade graphic novel about a girl who feels kind of awkward in herself. She's 12 years old at the start of the story, and she feels like she still wants to be a kid, but her friends are all growing up around her, and she has a hard time kind of growing up. So she has a seance tea party, and she ends up actually meeting this ghost girl that lives in her house and becoming really good friends with her, and their friendship is the most precious thing ever. I love it. And it's actually a really sad book. Like, it's definitely a tearjerker. It deals a lot with grief, the struggles of growing up, and the art is just amazing, so cute. I just love the whole vibes of this. It goes through the seasons, and it has a very spooky vibe, very calming while also being like very bittersweet. I just loved it so much, and I feel like I never see anyone talk about this book, and it definitely deserves more hype. Alright, and that is it for my July wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below what your favorite book you read in July was. I'd love to hear about all your recommendations. And thank you very much again for watching. If you liked and enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye!